For Jazz Reggae, it's like this big festival that happens every year. It's student run. It's the biggest student run festival in the world, actually, or in the nation. They sold out for the first time this year, and we did all the art for the VIP section. And it came at a crazy time because, like, not only was I busy with all the stuff that was going on here, but with my own stuff, but there was this the expansion here, and then Caleb was working on this thing the entire time, and I was trying to help him as much as I could. And we had a bunch of Caleb's records that we thought that we were going to be able to put up for, like, on display, and then
they were sold. The idea, like, I've always kind of been, as a little kid, I had model trains and things like this, and so I knew what kind of was possible with it. But the idea came that I hear a lot of graffiti artists always say, "Oh man, you shouldn't be spray painting on canvas, you shouldn't be on wall, you know, it has to be not in the gallery." That's what they always want. And so the idea was to put things, paintings on trains, because the trains are not canvas or anything else, and they look like they belong there. So, and that's the idea, is to have a big spinning column of graffiti, and so if you have one, then you need two, because it can't go up without the second one. So
yeah, so we decided that we were going to make these big spirals for the trains to go up, and originally the idea was that they were going to be like 12 feet tall, and they would have, you know, like 3 levels of trains visible at all times, being pulled really slowly, so it just was like a spinning, like you said, spinning column of graffiti just going up and down, like up one and then down the other. But as we worked, we realized what was possible and what wasn't.
That was not possible.
So there was a time, in fact, when we first put it together and we were like, all right, let's try it, and grab the camera and turn it on, we realized that it wasn't going to pull that many cars. Not only was it not going to pull that many cars with just one engine, and then we figured that we could just put 2 engines and it would be fine. And I learned all this because I didn't know anything about model trains before this, but I know a lot about them now. So we realized that with all the tension on the track, since it was such a tight spiral, such a tight turning radius, it
pulled the cars straight and pulled them right off track.
Yeah, there was too much weight, so they would be pulling on each other, and they would just like kind of want to straighten out and then just like fall over, just like snap apart.
And this actually isn't going to be the last video about this piece. Eventually the piece will be turned into something way better. Eventually there's going to be subway stations all the way up, and the other will all be tunnels, and I'm going to put, like, I don't know, some few thousand LEDs, build a little Berlin, little LA, a little New York, Sao Paulo, wherever there's a subway. I want to try to incorporate that as many cities as possible and have the artists from the cities actually paint some cars put in here.
The spiral is Minimalist's favorite shapes, or one of them, and the line is another one. So it worked really well to have it be this kind of like under construction looking piece that was also just gorgeous in itself. And then with the trains running on it, it looked great aside from that.
One thing that's actually really awesome about it is, like, I didn't really notice until I was actually done with the piece, but it really reminds me a lot of a piece, the Guggenheim Museum that Frank Gehry did in New York. Like, it looks a lot like that, and so if you guys want to look up a piece of that, like, it's a big white spiral, and basically you go up the thing and look at art. So it actually has a lot to do with that. It's very together with that.
Yeah, and we had actually considered putting, there was an artist that put, his art piece was this thing that just hung down the entire middle, so you could like walk around and look at it throughout the middle. We considered doing things that like hang down through the middle, which would have been cool. When it's done, it'll be little tiles and like gravel in between, and like rebar sticking out and train stops.
It will look like an actual subway, but it will mimic all the subways across, like, well, as many as I can fit on each rung, but as many as subway, it will mimic all the different subways from all the different countries.
Yeah, but it'll be like a surrealist version because it's a spiral and not like you're driving from one culture to another as you go up. It's a part of a greater whole, which will be a giant show that we want to do, incorporating a bunch of different elements of cars running all together in our gallery. Hopefully that'll be like the opening of our gallery, and this is just the first stop on the journey.
Puns!
Yeah, and we'll just keep rolling as we go. But that was one of the best things about this too, was all the puns that we had to make.
You would not believe the amount of train puns we came up with. Nailin' or railin'. Dude, that's all I did for 2 weeks.
When we finally got it to the festival, it was just kind of like, the work never stopped, even while we were sitting there supposed to be doing live art, like painting the trains, and we had to just keep going and checking on the trains over and over and over.
It was like every 15 minutes I was out of my chair like, shit, the train's derailed. Crap,
And while we were working on it, it was like the most stressful thing ever. We started like hating each other and just like
there was definitely a lot of hate and definitely a lot of love going on during the process between me and Patterson. It was stressful on everybody was running high, and it's just because there was just a lot of things going on. We were building our house at the same time, we have a bunch of new roommates now to deal with, and we were dealing with at that moment in time, and
yeah,
it was crazy.
We got to meet a bunch of cool people throughout though, and it's going to be cool because I feel like it's going to be something to bring in a lot of people together, and people really like the idea, so we really want a lot of different artists to contribute, and we'll give them train cars, or they can buy their own train cars and paint them and then send them to us, and then we can put them on display, and hopefully we'll get to perform this show multiple times, hopefully in multiple places, and people will get to display their artwork in a bunch of different ways.
So I actually don't know how many people there's a lot of people that came up to this Jazz Reggae Festival. Oh, that's really cool, and it's nice and whatever. But I don't know if many people actually know like the detail and the extent of what's actually here. Like each of these pieces of track is probably about 3 feet long. There's over 300 feet of it on the entire thing. Every 3 inches there's a nail, and so that's a lot of nails, a lot of screws, a lot of everything else. On top of that, each piece of track has to be soldered together. A little wire and a soldering gun. So
we had to we didn't use actual nails either. We used these little very soft staples from a staple gun. We had to physically break off every single nail that we wanted to put in.
And the reason for doing that really was because we did this project very low budget. We really didn't have much of a budget to contribute, and we were all kind of hurting for money at the time. So it became an issue, so we had to start using things around the house to solve these little problems.
We broke the tip of the Dremel, so we couldn't cut off all the nails on the bottom, so half the nails are just bent up because we couldn't cut them all out.
Well, the very first steps to starting the process was really getting a sketch down, and I kind of had seen some videos of YouTube of a few people who had done similar things. And it was really difficult to kind of grasp the complete concept of how high the train could go each time, because if you have it going too steep, the little engine won't make it up, it just won't. So you have to do a lot of mathematics and stuff and try to figure out exactly what a little train, this little engine, can handle. And really you couldn't even test it until you had a few rungs on, and so it was kind of a lot of trial and error trying to get the first few steps done. And as I moved up, we kind of progressed, and then when I went on to the second one, I kind of figured it out a little bit better, and had the adjustments of the turns so each wheel could fit on it correctly and not want to come off, and there was a lot of little details, I guess.
We didn't have money, so we had to search far and wide on Craigslist and eBay and use train stores and all sorts of different things like that to try to find boxcars to even be able to put on it, because we didn't have enough. And we only had a few, and as a matter of fact, Caleb thought that he was going to have...
I was supposed to have a bunch. Actually, yeah, there was another little hiccup there, and that is my grandparents actually sold my childhood train sets, and that was what kind of sparked that project, because I knew I could do it because I had the materials. But then when I didn't have the materials and I had already committed to doing a project, it kind of got me in a little bind.
Yeah, and so we were lucky enough to have a whole bunch of wood laying around because we were working on the space, and so we got to cut out of the composite board. We just had it there, and we could make 2 full circles from each sheet of composite board. Caleb kind of figured out the angle that it needed to go and where he could bend the plywood, and then we laid track down. We thought we had enough, and we didn't, so we had to go buy more track, and it was just things like that kept adding up. So it ended up being that we gave ourselves 2 full days of just in case time, so that we could wrap up and do all the final details, and we were working right until the very last moment.
I was doing touch-ups at Jazz Reggae, trying to make the train more correctly.
Yeah, and then we were sanding and cleaning the track and all that. We actually woke up the morning of Jazz Reggae, and we're getting ready, early in the morning, 8 a.m. or something, getting ready to go put the structure in the car so that we could bring it to UCLA, and we realized that it wouldn't fit out the door. And so we were oh crap, we were thinking we were going to have to tear the wall out, and...
It was a breakdown moment for me.
Yeah, and we were just what the hell are we going to do? And so I go back, we decided, alright, screw it, we got to go rip the wall out. And so I go back to get the materials, to change actually, to do so. And when I come back, Caleb has one of them in the elevator, And I was like, how the hell did you do that?
And I said, thank God I didn't listen to you, Patterson. Build it 4 feet tall because it's 3'6" tall and 4 foot wide. The doors are a little under 4 feet, so they won't fit sideways, but if you actually put them and roll them through the door, they will roll right through the door with like an inch on each side to spare. Like I built it perfectly.
So we got really lucky and we just like jam-packed the truck and then got on the road to UCLA, just kind of like tried to strap everything in. It took a little bit of damage on the way.
There are some things that need to be adjusted and fixed.
Like some of these little wood blocks that they're nailed into that the track like lays on that kind of support it up were like the biggest hassle in the world because Caleb couldn't get them to. I mean, I didn't see very much of that, but they kept like breaking.
The nail gun was too much pressure for like these little boards, and so every time he'd push the board up to stick it into the other board, it would split right in half. You'd shoot the nail through, and it would split it right in half, and I did that.
Yeah, there was
like
so
50
much
times.
frustration, but I mean, you don't end up loving something unless it really pisses you off throughout some point of its life. So it's like your mom or something, so you have to. Like there's no artwork that you just love the entire time. You have to hate it at some point in order to make sure that you love it as much as we do this thing. Because once we got it there and we see all the little kids like running around and playing with it and stuff, and Caleb's letting everyone be the conductor. You're the conductor for the day. No, you're the conductor for the day. And like some of the kids were great. There was like what was the little kid's name?
I think his name was Tyler. But it was just this little kid. And he was really cute, and all he wanted to do was just so curious about the trains. He just wanted to. Well, how do they work, and how does it?
Yeah.
I don't know.
And I had trouble hooking the trains up, like the boxcars together. But he was just like, his hands weren't even big enough to hold them, and he was just like connecting them and like rolling them around together and stuff. So the kids absolutely loved it, which is one thing that we're excited for because we want our next show to kind of be about that. Like, I mean, yeah, it's an homage to an extremely illegal form of art, something that you can die from. People do die very often out in train yards and getting caught up and going to jail, like revoked. So it is really demonized, but we wanted to show that there's also just an art aspect that anyone can appreciate to it. So to see all the kids running around and playing with it was really exciting, and they just like all wanted to sit around and watch. I ended up having to babysit this kid whose mom was like, "Look on stage, there's a black rapper," and like dancing and like fist pumping in the middle, and everyone in the VIP section was like looking at her like she was crazy. So it was pretty nuts, and he was obviously embarrassed by his mom, but she was like, "Would you mind watching him real quick? I'm gonna go listen to the music." "Okay, thanks." And I had to like sit there, and he's asking to paint with us and stuff. So it was it got crazy, but it was fun. And the second day was actually really chill. We just kind of got to like hang out and eat a bunch of really great free food and meet other artists. And we met this guy Quentin, who's amazing. Yeah. And then Armando, who made this giant like lion sculpture out of flyers.
Armando. That was amazing, dude.
And then we met some other artists too. We met the guys who run Esoteric, which is another art collective. They're kind of like an art factory, which is just a couple blocks away from us, and they do something very, very similar. So we're going to be collaborating with them a couple times. So it was good, and well, we got to meet Utter and all them.
Through the project, yeah.
Yeah, we got to meet some graffiti artists in the Valley who are going to be working with us a lot. They call themselves the Charles Tribe, and so and they know a whole bunch of people. So hopefully, this will be something that just kind of connects us to the LA art scene a lot more, and we get to incorporate ourselves into it.
Well, not even just LA, like branch out to every art world, really.
Yeah.
Try to.
And hopefully you get to see it around, and expect our show where we'll have a whole bunch of these things that we now know how to make, even though we hate making them. It'll be fun to make a few more. The show called Whole Car that Caleb and I will be curating at the Think Tank, which will be our kind of grand opening sometime either in November or like in the spring of next year.
Yeah, and make sure you guys can figure out a way to get to it because it's going to be amazing. Nothing like it's ever been done. So.
Yeah.